بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولفظ الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وارزقنا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم وجعلنا ممن يستبعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه آمين 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 أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah the preluding comments we had are just to inshallah give us some kind of framework so that when we now speak about specific or start to look at some things that are more specific as examples, we hopefully can better understand them to the principles or to broader principles that underpin our reasons and practice for what we're doing. It's again, it cannot be overstated. What we believe in is a manner of how God has intended humanity to find Him and His truth from the time of Adam to the finality of the messenger. And I just want to say that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I just want to say that this is very, very important when we then go on in any space we find ourselves formulating our expression of Islam. We must try and keep this foremost in our minds, is that the place from where we are expressing our understanding is with this awareness that Islam is universal. It's for everyone. Everyone, okay? So you're meeting people with blue hair or whatever, and now God knows He has it. That's not the point. That's not what you get hung up on. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Those aren't the things that you start having like discussions about. Like how you can no way be. You can't be like that because these are. We need to see things from the aspect of everyone is carrying and knowing of Allah's oneness in a very clear way. Every single soul knows this. And when we speak as inheritors, as stewards of the final tradition, yes, part of that amana is to speak and to address people with that understanding of universality. That does not mean a accommodating or a appeasing or a approval of what is haram. I don't understand why Muslims can. All of us struggle with haram. Everyone makes mistakes. Like this idea of someone, you can only be Muslim if you're sinless. It's just ridiculous. Everyone knows that's ridiculous. And now you meet people that are finding Islam, and I'll be honest with you, but some of their background and where they are, you'll be like, how are you finding Islam? Because I'm telling you, some of it's like, huh? But that's not your place. You're not there to judge that. Do you understand? They're coming from very, very strange places, and they still are caught up in some of that, but yet they find Tawheed, and they're like, I know this is the truth, but I've got a lot of issues. You understand what I mean? And we have to be very careful that we don't come off as, oh no, but you can't do this, you can't do that. No. What we need to be saying is, come, ta'alo. Come. Why? Because all of us are needing to work on things. What we're not going to say is, and we cannot say, that these are things that are allowed and they are approved of. No, clearly they're not. But we're all needing to deal with things that we have to struggle against that aren't approved of and we find challenging. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And this is it's an important point, especially in this age, and that's a very central to the final revelatory dispensation that we are the followers of, and we are part of that ummah. Yes? Allahu Akbar. So anyway, moving on to this point of what I believe is one of the first techniques and methods. It's worth noting that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu. And Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu, he accepted Islam late, unlike his son Abdullah. Abdullah was very early, but Amr ibn al-As, he accepted. When I say late, I mean the 7th year of Hijrah, around this sort of time, with Khalid bin Walid. They were best friends. Khalid bin Walid and Amr ibn al-As, they were best friends. And even when they came to Medina afterwards, their houses were right next to each other. They lived they ended up living as neighbors as well. And something about Amr ibn al-As, anhu, he was extremely, quick-witted. He was renowned for being very quick-witted. Like siyasa, he had a political mind. He had a real strong political mind. Right? He was known for this. And everyone has this, strengths. And so the Prophet ﷺ sent him to, at that time, the king of Oman, Al-Julanda, yes, Al-Julanda, who, radiyallahu anhu, he also becomes Muslim, but he sends Amr ibn al-As to him as a way of inviting him to Islam. So after Amr ibn al-As describes the Prophet ﷺ and who he is, Al-Julanda, he says, he makes the following remarks. He said, لَقَدْ دَلَّنِي عَلَى هَذَا النَّبِيِّ الْأُمِّي. You have indicated to me this unlettered prophet. أنه لا يعمر بخير إلا كان أول آخذ منه or آخذ به. That you told me, you have pointed to me onto this prophet, that he is one that does not command to khair, does not tell or instruct to khair, goodness, except that he's the first to take it upon himself. Right? وَلَا يَنْهَى عَنْ شَرٍ إِلَّا كَانَ أَوَّلَ تَارِكٍ لَهُ. And he's not one that prohibits shar, wrong, except that he is the first to leave it. وَأَنَّهُ يَغْلِبُ فَلَا يَبْطَرُ. And that when he is victorious, when he overcomes, has ghalaba, la yabtar, he doesn't become hubris. Batar is to be hubris. Hubris, it means to be arrogant. Okay? And this is how the Quraysh were described when they set out for Badr in the Quran. Bataran wa ri'a'an nas. They left in this hubris, pomp. When they left, the Quran describes them as they marched out to Badr with arrogance and pomp, right? And he's saying, Julanda radiyallahu anhu, this king of Oman, that you're describing this prophet to me, Amr ibn As. So you're telling me that when he is victorious, he doesn't become hubris. وَيُغْلَبْ فَلَا يُهْجِرُ or فَلَا يُهْجَرُ. There's two ways of reading this. And that, again, it emphasizes وَيُغْلَبْ is a way of saying that. And when he is and when he's on the end of a loss. When Abu Sufyan went to Heraclius, yes, and he coincided, when Abu Sufyan was in Palestine, and he asked, Heraclius started asking Abu Sufyan about the Prophet ﷺ, yes? One of the questions he asked him was, he says, كَيْفَ كَانَتْ حَرْبَيْنَكُمَا? And how is warfare between you? And Abu Sufyan says, Harbun Sijal. He said, and battle is Sijal. Sijal means what? It means it's one of nutrition. Sometimes we have a hand, sometimes they have a hand. Do you get the point? Yes? So what he's saying is that you're telling me that, and when at times he is overcome, فَلَا يُهْجِرْ يعني ما معنى يهجر or يهجر? This is يعني لا يقول القبيح من الكلام. That he would not give over, this is the Prophet ﷺ, in those situations, to profanity, to speaking foul. You know, قبيح الكلام. You know when things don't go your way. That's another way you can see the colours of somebody's reality. What's fascinating? What should fascinate you? This is Amr ibn As telling Julanda about the Prophet ﷺ, and he's mentioning what? He's mentioning times when he hasn't been victorious. Do you get what I mean? Yughlab, sometimes, and he's saying, and when that happens, he goes, you're telling me he behaves like this then? He's one that doesn't give over to vexation. You know, like, you idiot, blah, blah, you what you, blah, 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 you know this. He's telling him that this is someone that's like, subhanallah, yeah? وَأَنَّهُ يَفِي بِالْعَهْدِ. And you're telling me he's someone that is loyal in his promises, right? Yafi bil ahad. When he makes a pact, he makes an agreement, he fulfills them. Yes? Ahad are contracts, really. Ahad are like contracts. Wa'ad is promise. So ahad is a contract. You know, agreements that are more understood as contractual agreements. Pacts. Yes? He fulfills his pacts. Right? Because what he says after that, al-Julanda, he says, وَيُنْجِزُ الْوَعْدِ, and he completes his promises. You understand the difference? So when al-Julanda hears this from Amr ibn As, he says that, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّهُ نَبِيٌّ, and I bear witness he is a prophet. Now, you know, there's something to think about, isn't it? He's not seen the Prophet. Yeah. Yes. He's hearing this from someone who's, they say, Hadith al-Ahad for Islam. He's not, like I said, Amr ibn As is recent to Islam. But the thing is what? You can see that even in Amr ibn As, radiallahu anhu, that he has, talawwana. He has taken on, that colouring of Sahaba. So in him, he can see that there's a reality to these people. Do you see what I'm saying? Because he's seeing him say these words, but he's also understanding that there's a testimony in this man that is reliable. Yes? Someone just comes up to you and says to you to believe in such a man. You haven't met yet. Your vicegerent, the one you sent, is going to be under some serious assessment. Like, what are you about? You see what I mean? And then he bears it, right? So this is profound because of also the actual specifics that Julanda is saying about the Prophet upon hearing about him, saying that these are his qualities. And I have to bear witness, this is a prophet. And this is why that when we want to speak about Allah's victory, I'm going to speak about these things. This is what's requisital, right? It's this type of understanding and behavior and character. So therefore, when we now move on to, and I want to look at the first of these. The first of the techniques, right, that I should have used the in the English you have, let me find where I am here. No. So, the first hadith we encounter, and this is again underscoring broadly his Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's manner of having a beautiful way of life and most excellent character. Hopefully we understood in the morning, or what was already said in the morning, about what we mean by beauty and what we particularly intend by that term. And so, but therefore, what we can also clearly associate with a beautiful way of life is a life that is informed by being virtuous. And by being virtuous means what? It means adorning oneself with virtues. Right? Once that becomes the central and core aspiration of how you want to live your life by, your life will become beautiful. But we must be very clear that the thing that will make it really beautiful is that those virtues are done for the purpose of drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make no mistake, part of this modern age we're in and the ludicrousy of it is that it's this utter descent into individual hedonism, is the discarding and the abandonment of any sense of a complete human being, the need for a human being to be complete in order to be fulfilled. While pre-modern people, you will find without exception, right? Pre-moderns, they had that much of a sense that when they were to discuss the human being, they discussed it with a degree of concern of entirety, of the human being viewed as an entirety of organism, if you could say it like that. Spiritual, physical, how do you bring the synthesis of this together? And this is why you find from the ancients, from Aristotle, from Confucius, you find them always talking about virtue. Because everyone readily understood that that is the most central thing that brings about a true fulfillment of the human being's reality, you know. But for us, obviously, it's situated in a higher reality. The virtues as things to aspire to, but for them to have a real consequence for us in the sense of bringing us to reality, they have to be endeavored and nurtured in the prophetic way. Do you see what I mean? And in the prophetic framework, and the Quranic guidance, and in the Quranic boundaries, right? That is now virtue that is truly an expression of when we say generosity, or when we say kindness, or when we say forbearance, or when we say temperance, or when we say wisdom. It comes now through that lens of learning. Yes, you follow what I mean? And the beauty of this point is what? This is something pre-moderns universally acknowledge the significance of virtues in themselves. Where we diverge with them is the framework in which they would go about saying what would be you could say, the end goal of those virtues, right? The end goal of virtues for us is not just the fact that, oh, you're a really nice person now, you know? Well done, mashallah. You can have your cake. Yeah? It's not that. That's not the point of. Do you see what I mean? It's not this idea of so you can just be like a nice person. That It's not self-referential. Virtues for us are not self-referential. Do you understand? Virtues for us are because they are prerequisital. They are prerequisital for the knowledge of Allah. They are prerequisital for the knowledge of Allah. And that's why prophets are always, they're the standard of that, you see. That's why when we aspire to do good acts or whatever you want to, righteous actions, it's not because they are to be taken note by the person being there. The more we are distanced from that concern, inshallah, it means the act is being more done sincerely for Allah. And the greatest of good actions are those that are the ones that even go against your desire for doing the good action. What? So look, Sahaba, right? One thing they stand out by is what? In a simple way, Sahaba, what makes them so distinct? They weren't asking the question, what can Allah do for me? They lived their lives on, what can I do for Allah? And that is the biggest difference between them and us. And then they didn't just ask that question, what can I do for Allah? They were, no doubt, obsessed in exerting every human effort to perform good actions. That's no doubt. And then subsequent generations, you understand? So first, that equation needs to be turned the other way. Yes? Right? So it's one of, what can I do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yes? So they became obsessed with that inquiry. So it becomes what? Their tests then become one of taking observation of when they can't do the good that they wanted to do. You understand? Forget wrong action now. They become concerned, why can't I do that good? Because then it becomes a question of tawfiq. It becomes a question of divine attention, you see? You see the difference? For most of us, we're trying to deal with what we shouldn't be doing. While for them, that wasn't. Their orbit was one of, how am I not doing what I want to be doing by way of even more great good acts? And then they'd get to, you can see, there can be tests in this. Allah says in Surah Tawbah, about who? About the Sahaba. What did he say about them? When the call came in Surah Tawbah, it refers to the campaign of Tabuk, right? The military expedition of Tabuk. And the invitation is for everyone. I mean, not an invitation, let me say that again. Sayyidina Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, he had commanded every able body, they had to come out on that expedition. No excuses. No one. This is the last of the military expeditions. The last. And it's interesting that it's like anyone, you have to come to this. Yes? And you see, in Surah Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah Tawbah is an amazing surah for many reasons. But one of the most fascinating things that you see come in that surah, Allah mentions the believers who can't go because they don't have the means to go. There's no military industrial complex, guys. When you were commanded to turn up for a military expedition, you had to put everything up. It was your own wealth. If you had a horse, it was your own horse. Then respectively, if one was victorious, the remunerations of that would be based upon the ghanima, the bounty. You understand? It wasn't like, oh yeah, don't worry, we've got $1 trillion, military industrial complex here. We'll be kitting you out. No. Yeah? It was like, not only are you being told to come forward, and it means sacrificing your life, right? But also you have to give everything from what you own to facilitate your journey to get there. Look at it, I'll just stop there. How many of us would just be like, well, that's not fair, astaghfirullah. One thing you're making me now, you're not going to even help me do that. Oh my God, man. Clearly that means I don't have to go. You know what I mean? We're all ready to throw it on the other person. You know, oh, 1 minute you're telling me to do it, next minute you're not even helping me do it. Astaghfirullah, that's just like, and then on top of that you want me to lay down my life. That's a bit charming. La. What does Allah say about it? In Tawbah it refines us to these categories. Those believers who didn't have the means, you know, they couldn't go, they couldn't make it. They came to the Prophet. In Tawbah you can tafidu, yani their eyes crying to the Prophet that they can't go because they can't make it. They haven't got anything, they haven't got nothing that can make the journey with. They were weeping to the Prophet that we can't make it. And then Allah says to that, Allah says on comment to that, to the Prophet that you are not responsible to creating the means so they can go. But look at this sincerity. You understand the point? Yeah? And then the other side is what? In Tawbah, it also mentions the munafiqeen who come up with all the excuses. They turn up saying, yeah, you know, I've got to change the hooves on my camel and all that. Couldn't make it, got a flat tire. Hey, I'll run out of petrol. Oh, you won't believe what happened. Mum called me, I had to do an MOT. Your mum don't drive, bro. What happened? How do you do that? No. No, you know, I know, we all know when we make excuses. We all know. Don't hide it, okay? We all do it. But don't hide it. See it for what it is. Because the Quran makes it very clear. Now, these are people who didn't make excuses. And those who look for excuses are akin to munafiqeen. That's very concerning. And remember, in the Quran, the munafiqeen are the worst of the worst because they show Islam, right? And they hide. It was inspired, inshallah, in Medina recently, and we saw the mosque. It's called Masjid Shaykhain now, where the 300 hypocrites turned back from Uhud. Imagine that. Abdullah bin Ubay as-Salul. That's ajib, isn't it? To think about it. Even in the prophetic company, he's dealing with these people that to his face, you know, speak words of praise, and he's a prophet. They are, you know, Abdullah bin Ubay, yeah, Abi Salul, Ubay Salul. What did he do? He used to wait outside. This is the head of the munafiqeen. He used to wait outside of the chamber of the Prophet. And when the Prophet would be coming out for Salah, right, particularly for Jummahs, he would stand up there and say, look, here's the messenger of God. Can you imagine that? And all the people, you know, the Sahaba, obviously Umar, they were like, do you know, like it was just a pomp, you know, like a show. And then they would go to the back of the mosque where the munafiqeen were. He'd do that, then go to the back, and they'll sit there and just talk. And ajib. That's a sign. That's Allah sending us some real powerful things of, you know, when we're told this, is to seek refuge with Allah, to seek protection. It's not you're like ajib, right? So we were saying this because of what? Because we were making the point of virtue, right? You understand? And a way of life. So you see, one thing is commitment to that. And knowing that sometimes what? That if Allah, you so badly want to do the good, and Allah doesn't facilitate that, you see that from Allah as a test. Have you ever seen that? You're being tested because you can't do the good that you want to do. هذا عجيب هذا عجيب يعني. You know what I mean? That's a different bench, that's a different ballpark altogether. That is where the Sahaba were at. Now you can understand why they were given so much tawfiq. Hopefully, you know, inshallah, Allah maj'alna minhum, inshallah, give us something of this. So, this is why we find generally the beautiful way of the Prophet ﷺ is in this life informed with khuluq, right? Innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. Indeed, you are on this momentous character. Naam. So in the hadith, so it's the first one that you have, yes? You can see there, from Jabir bin Abdullah radhiyallahu anhu. And Jabir radhiyallahu anhu, amazing companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, he was his father died shaheed at Uhud, and he had a vision, he had a dream that he was going to be shaheed. And he said this to his son, he said it to Jabir, because he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was an indication that yes, he would meet his martyrdom in Uhud. But the thing was this, he was going to leave behind surviving, if I remember rightly, some of you may know more exact, you can correct, but I think it's 9 daughters. And Jabir was he was the oldest of the sons, so he was going to be in charge of them. So he tells Jabir that. He tells him, he goes, this is what it looks like, and you will now have to take care of your sisters. Afan, Ajib, brother. See, this is why Allah protects us so much. People want dreams, they want these things, what about, huh? You think you have a dream like that, you're going to turn around and say that? Just think about that now. Are you following what I'm trying to say? It's one thing you have a dream, it's another thing you fulfill the amana of that now. In the prophetic company, he's saying yes. Then he goes back and tells his son, he goes, get ready. You're going to have to take care of your sisters. It's not like, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah. And this is why Jabir, and that's why the Prophet used to show him much concern, you know, afterwards. Like if there was a few extra things that would come, he would send it to his house to help him. And there's that classic incident of when they were on it. And even after this, he joined the Prophet in one of their expeditions, and they were returning, and he was on his camel. Jabir was on his camel. And his camel was really slow, right? It was lagging behind. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he was right behind everyone. He's like, what's happened to him? He goes, oh, his camel's just like... And the Prophet ﷺ says, yeah, he goes, Ya Allah, he goes, give me your camel. So he changed. So he gave him his camel. And the camel went from obviously being slow to like right at the front. Like, to the point, enters Medina. He's like, get to Medina. And then the Prophet ﷺ says to Jabir, he says, you know, إِنَّا لَوَجَدْنَاهَا الْبَحَرِ. You know, we found it to be like the ocean. Like she was flying. What's wrong with it? And he goes, بِعْنِهِ إِيَاهَا. He goes, sell me it now. He goes, I want to buy it off you. And he goes, no, it's yours, Ya Rasulullah. How can I sell it to you? Take it. He goes, la la la, bithaman. He goes, with its price. I'm not just going to take, give me it with its price. And he goes, all right then. He goes, dirham. Like not even that, daniq, yani, just whatever, just give me a 1p. He goes, no, with its price. What's its exact price? So he gets the market, you know, the price of it. And then the Prophet gets the money for that. And then he pays him it. And then Jabir is like, khair. And Jabir is going, walking away. And the Prophet said, you've forgotten something. And he goes, what's this? He says, you've forgotten the camel. Jabir is like, huh? He goes, you just bought the camel. He goes, yeah. He goes, now I gift you it back. So he gave it back to him as a gift, you see. This is how you give and you honor. You don't make the person feel that they are what? They're in need as such, you see. He made a trade with him and then he gifted it back to him, right? So Jabir is an amazing companion, radhiyallahu anhu. In any case, he narrates this hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have to stop soon, isn't it? It's 11:30, is it? 11:30, yeah. So he says, radhiyallahu anhu, if you look in the hadith, he says, قال أتانا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في مسجدنا هذا وفي يده أرجون ابن طاب. And the description we have is that the Messenger of Allah, he came to us while we were in this mosque, carrying a branch from a date palm of Ibn Tab. Ibn Tab, I should say, is the name of a man from Medina, right? That a particular date carries his inscription, right? Tamr ibn Tab, you understand? And the tree that it's from, or the branch is from, is also called Ibn Tab. Do you understand? And it's a particular date palm that bears different colored dates. And in the hadith you see it's described as being urjun. Urjun is yellow, a yellow branch. Al-ud al-asfar. Al-arid al-khali min al-rutub. So when in the Arabic, you know, it says in the hadith that it was urjun, right? You find that this is urjun ibn Tab is describing a branch that is yellow, wide, yes, okay, and was without any dates. So it's basically like a dried branch, you can say, right? From this date palm of Ibn Tab, named after a man of Medina. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ comes into the masjid carrying this branch from this date palm. And what does he notice? He notices some phlegm on the wall in the direction of the Qibla. So he scraped it away with the branch, and he then turned towards us and asked, which of you would like Allah to turn away from him? Right? And this is, it's interesting, you know. First you take to note how the Prophet entered the masjid with a date palm branch, this wide yellow branch that is without, you know, a dry branch. And then there's this phlegm on the wall. Nothing from Jabir's hadith is indicating from this that the Prophet ﷺ had been there previously and went to get the date palm branch and has now returned. Do you understand? It starts with him saying, Atana, he came to us in the mosque carrying the date palm branch. For what he's now going to make a lesson, which is another indication of what? How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? With knowledge and understanding of things, to then make those moments of tarbiyah, moments of instruction. So when he comes and there's this phlegm on the direction of the Qibla wall, he takes the date palm branch that he has and he scrapes it away. Yes? Now if I ask you something right now, you should immediately be able to identify not just the prophetic practice, but there's a prophetic attitude here. And what is that? For all of us. Yes, Sarah. Sorry? So one is service and actually doing the thing. And if I was to say that in a word, taking initiative, not passing the buck. You know, like we see something, oh, like, yeah, someone else can do it. The Prophet ﷺ, when he said that the highest of Iman is what? La ilaha illallah, you know, the saying of that. Wa adnaha, and the least of Iman as a demonstration, imatatul adha anit tariq, is removing something harmful from the way. You know, from the way. Yeah? Do you understand? Now I know and you know. I can definitely say if you live in High Wycombe, you know. Is that when you walk around, you find things in the pathway, yeah? How many times do you just think, oh, you just step over it and carry on? Or you just like, yeah, you know, like you, huh? When it should be really, it's like, ah. And if you don't do it, what kind of reasons could be cast upon it? Someone can do it, someone else can pick it up, huh? And the Prophet spoke about as being what? That's Iman at its most simple level. Don't I say least? At its most simple level. That is underscoring something quite important. That's initiative. You don't wait to be told to do the khair. This is another thing that we find ourselves. We always find ourselves needing to, like, always, who's going to tell? When it's there, it's in front of you. What's the difficulty? It's there, it's right there. Allah's giving you the opportunity. Oh yeah, if Allah would turn to me, how do you want Him to turn to you, bro? You want to send Jibreel to you or something? How do you think Allah turns to you? He turns to you through these moments and opportunities. That's how He's turning to you. Tafaddal. But you know what happens? That's when the nafs kicks in, your reason and you end up what? You end up bypassing the opportunity. And then you're sitting around, thinking, oh yeah, We spend so much time worrying about, oh, if Allah guides me, if Allah this, ya hamani. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Ibn Ata'illah says, he says that Allah has never veiled, rather it is you that have veiled yourself from Him. That's the truth. If we're thinking like mu'mineen and like believers in a prophetic way, you will see that you are surrounded by opportunities to draw closer to Him. If we avail them, then that's a sign of, inshallah, Allah's conferring upon us His tawfiq. If we ignore them, then we are really missing opportunities. And make no mistake, Allah will incessantly and unceasingly send opportunities. Unceasingly. Why? Because when Yawm al-Qiyamah comes, وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا, you can now throw 100 excuses. What are they? You ain't got excuses. You understand? You ain't got excuses. Allah put it there in front of you. But what will happen? You are obsessed with wanting things in a certain way. Do you understand? That's why you want to do good for Allah, be very careful not to obsess to have it done in a way that you want to do it. Because that can be in itself barring. It can bar one, you understand? You become obsessed with, no, I want it like, huh? So here, when Jabir radiallahu anhu is saying about the Prophet coming, now look, he deals with the issue in front of them. You see what I mean? He first corrects it. He deals with it, right? And then he turns into a reminder, right? This is proactiveness. Do you get the point? He's handled the situation first. Now he's using it as a place of reminder. And he's saying this question of, which of you would like Allah to turn away from Him? This is massive. Why? Look at the act that he has just done, yes? Right? And then look at what he's following it up as a question and the meaning of that question, which is effectively also saying that in behaving in such a way, as in, obviously it means spitting, etc., in the direction of the Qibla, right? The Prophet ﷺ is equating that with a manner of, which of you would like Allah to turn away from him? It's adab. You see, adab. Be careful. And when he's asking him this, notice what he hasn't done. What hasn't he done? In this question, what is he not doing? Sorry? There's no rebuke and there's no investigating who actually did it. He didn't just deal with it and then say, right, which one of you done that? Do you see the point? In that sense, they all took a degree of responsibility in what happened. What the Prophet ﷺ done by way of initiative, for those who didn't partake in it, their initiative should have been ideally to have cleaned it. Do you understand? So now it's foregone. You see what I mean? The Prophet is not dwelling on who done it, why you did it, and make a particularization of him. Yes? This is similar to Jabir ibn Samurah, radiallahu anhu, the great Sahabi from Yemen. And when the Prophet ﷺ, he said about him, they said that when he entered the masjid, he said, and now comes a man, he is from the best of Yemen, and upon his face is the touch of the angels. So Jabir ibn Samurah, so the mosque was packed, and he walks in, and the whole mosque turns around and starts looking at him, and he's like... And then when he came, then the Prophet agreed, and then they told him afterwards what the Prophet has said. And Umar radiallahu anhu used to really, because he lived after the Prophet in his time of Sayyidina Umar, and he was mashallah, someone of, as you can imagine, he was very handsome. Yeah, not just in his appearance, but also physically, he was like proportionally just amazing. Like his physique. Like Umar once, he walked out once without his rida, his upper garment. He just had his izar on. Umar sent him back. He said, go and put your top on. Because it was common for men. That's how they would dress. It was common for them not to have. But for him, he was like, go and put it on. Because it's not right. So he had him put his rida back on. And one time they were sitting, and this is interesting. We will find this probably a bit humorous. They were sitting together, and one of them broke wind. Right? Umar was there, job, and someone broke wind. Umar was like, whoever done that, get up right now and go and do their wudu. Umar's not laughing. You see, we'd be in stitches, like, yeah, bro, smelt it, dealt it, and all that, Quran test. You could have the, start doing all that. Don't worry, I'm well familiar with the jokes, yeah. Yeah. Umar got upset at the fact that you ain't got wudu. Get up and go and do wudu, man. You need wudu. Don't walk around with no wudu. You crazy. For him, it was like, you ain't got wudu now, go and sort it out. So he's just looking at it like that. What's the issue? He's like, yeah, okay, calls of nature. But obviously, you see, Umar was just about, just do the khair. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to embarrass the person. He was like, just get up and go and do wudu, whoever did that. Jabir ibn Samurah is there. And he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why don't we all get up and go and do wudu? And he understood what he was saying. You see? And so they all got up, saving that person to stand up or feel embarrassed. Right? So this is Jabir ibn Samurah. We're talking about that because of what? Because of this aspect of having initiative and things. But anyway, here we see the removing, right? And then he says it, and they become scared naturally. If the Prophet's saying that, and you're sitting there, you're telling me you're gonna be like, whoa, what's coming? So Rasul saying that, believe me, it's gonna mean like, Like that. They're like, upon which we became afraid. Now they're too scared. They don't want to say it. They just know that. He said we just became فَخَشِعْنَا ثُمَّ قَالَ أَيُّكُمْ يُحِبُّ. Yani which one of you would want that? أَن يُعْرِضَ اللَّهُ عَنْ. An i'rad, that Allah turns away from such a one. And then again, their fear intensified. Now they're like, okay, what's happening? And then the Prophet ﷺ, he asked a third time the same question. And this time we all answered with, none of us, Ya Rasulullah. Yani, right? None of us. فَقُلْنَا لَا أَيُّنَا. Right? Not any one of us would, Ya Rasulullah. Now you see what happens here. Listen, these are all methods. Very important ones. The Prophet corrects it himself. He doesn't turn it into a personal investigation. That's what he's saying. And then what does he do? He precedes it with a question that he knows is going to make them fully heightened to, okay, this is one thing none of us want. You see what I mean? So he's got them now. Not only has he got them attentive, he's got them super concerned. You see the point? Right? Now he goes on to posit, what he wants to remain in them by way of understanding. And then he follows it with فَإِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ إِذَا قَامَ يُصَلِّي فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى قِبْلَ وَجْهِهِ فَلَا يُبْصِقَنَّ قِبْلَ وَجْهِهِ وَلَا عَنْ يَمِينِهِ وَلَا يَبْصُقْ عَنْ يَسَارِهِ تَحْتَ رِجْلِهِ الْيُسْرَى. Right? So then he goes on to say to them, therefore, when you stand in prayer, when you're standing in prayer, any one of you, Allah Most High is in front of him. Therefore, he must not spit in front of him, nor to his right. Rather, if he must, let him spit to his left, under his left foot. So now look, what do you see here? He doesn't only then give them explanation, he gives them a practical way to deal with that. What do you get from this? You say anything to someone, and this is particular for parents, all of us. You tell your kids, don't do that. There's not a particular problem with the don't do that. This idea of, your kids shouldn't hear you say no, rubbish. I'm sorry. That's not the school I'm from, and that's not the school I believe that good parents should be from. The school you are is you say you don't do that, but you explain why, and then you show the alternative. So you posit whether you want what needs to be done as an alternative. But just saying no, that's not good. That doesn't work. You see what I mean? Because you're leaving them, all right, you're telling me no, but then what do I do? And you're not following it with the correct thing, you see? So whenever you want to negate something, always be ready to follow it what should be affirmed. And explain it why. Then of course it's their choice. At the end of the day, لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No soul bears the burden of another soul. They have to grow up and make their own choices. You get what I'm saying? You can't police that. But what you can do, in as much as you can say, no, we don't do this. You give the explanation for why, and you then illustrate this is what we try to do and why we do that. You see the point? Now it's in their remit to choose to do it. So do you look at the Prophet ﷺ? He's followed caution, he's followed with it direction, right? And correcting, he's giving them an act that will be in relation to, in that situation, what you can do as a correct alternative to what you shouldn't be doing. And then he also adds to that, and if the urge is unexpected, then he should fold his garment like this. Look at the concern he is now unfolding. You see the point? He's also taking into account a situation and the frequency of what can be understood around it as a normal advent. Things that are outside of your control and how to deal with that, which customarily can happen. Are you following this? It's not just like, When one assesses a situation with these concerns, this is being utterly prophetic. Do you see the point? You get what I mean? It's like the most ajeebest things. Now, I mean, you shouldn't talk about peoples in like peoples are like this. It's very dangerous. You know, generalizations. We don't like to be generalized as Muslims, and you should be rest assured no one likes to be generalized. Okay, and so equally, you should be very careful about projecting that onto others. Yes. We're here. Shaykh Thaqib. Yeah. Okay. Barakallahu feekum. So Shaykh Thaqib is there. We'll stop, inshallah. And we'll continue with this in maybe tomorrow. We'll continue with this, inshallah.